So yeah, same as last time. Let's have a little development update on the binary search auction, and yeah, give us an overview of where we're at on the development of the 3D space.
The 3D space is live. It holds, we've got audited, and it's a never-ending sequence of NFT auctions. They could be started or canceled or completed. So they're non-custodial, which is cool. And anyway, the 3D world is beautiful. It's like a kind of like psychedelic spaceship, and it functions as both a gallery and an auction house. So you can go around and see a set of NFTs, and then you can look at the one that's being bid on currently. And anyway, so I think we're going to do another round of cleaning up the interface about what information we show and how do we display it. And then we're going to have a demo that we want to shop around to all the various people who may be interested in selling their NFT in it.
Yeah, I think there's the real potential to use this space. It's a gallery as well as an auction house. So I do think there's real potential to curate in this. So we've got these like locations of the various viewing spaces around this, and that people could maybe come in the run up to an auction event going live. It's a great space for people to just go around and review a collection.
I was wondering if it's maybe not too psychedelic to review certain things, because certain art will look really good in there, and some other visual art probably just going to look shit, because it's an art object in itself, right? This the textures and the space. Galleries are usually just blank, like white walls.
Yeah, there's a reason why they're just blank, because it detracts from the art itself. One of the things that this will be able to do, these little portals that are knocking about, you'll be able to trigger a new scene where you'll be able to have a much more stripped down version. So when you're viewing you might be able to view, you might have several collections in this, and then you can go into a space and view a much more white box like experience inside one of the portals.
So it could be like a little bit like an inventory panel or something.
Yeah, so you could go up to one NFT. So one of these could be a CryptoPunk, for example, and then you zoom into a little room that's just got CryptoPunks in, and it's much more of a classic gallery, like big white box sort of thing.
I'm glad we solved that problem.
Yeah, I think to have nested scenes within this, it opens up the potential that we can create sub-scenes for people. For partners who we can have a room that's much closer to a gallery, and then with some mild modifications can make it more branded and suitable for those people.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's lots of things we can do with it. Maybe what kind of feedback we get.
I think that's the thing to do. It's probably a good period to start going out and showing it to people and getting some feedback on it. Would you be interested in hosting a sort of exhibition in this thing?
I made the offer to Team Virtue and they accepted. So we talked with Naomi about we want to do a kind of like a branding call, just figure out, like, really nail down what is this thing and how do we want to talk about it, and what are some objectives and key results around it. We can collaborate on what the roadmap is for. And so yes,
that's good. So we've got a team who are going to take this on, work very closely with us to make sure it's something that we can repeatedly deploy for people. I think one of the things that concerned me about it earliest doors was that we could end up with a piece of technology that we don't have the internal competency to be able to make modifications to, or nuance for the specific use cases we've got. But now we've got that competency internally in the team, we can start to build out an auction trajectory, try it out, see if people like it. I think it puts us in we're in that kind of similar space to Decentraland and Crypto Voxels now with this. And the way I conceptualized it was it's more of a rentable venue, if you like. I think there's, I read not long ago, there's like...
Hey, Joseph, can you just mute there? Sorry, there's a lot of background noise.
Right, just muting it. What was I saying?
Renting it out.
Yeah,
sorry.
Rent it, yeah, like a venue space. There's something like 10 million NFTs on OpenSea now. So it's like
it's about to be 11 million as soon as we get Shiba in there.
So yeah, it's one of the reasons why the NFT bubble popped is just like absolute market saturation. Like all of a sudden you can sell JPEGs. So of course everyone tries to sell JPEGs. So it's the same market discovery phenomenon that we're trying to tackle with markets. And instead of fungible tokens, it's non-fungible tokens. And in a similar sort of vein, this is about curation. It's about filtering. It's about focusing attention like a laser onto certain things, right? So if we're awash with NFTs, millions and millions of them. If the way to get attention for your NFTs is to hold an event that leads up to an auction, that's the sort of dynamic of this thing. So without getting too bogged down in the kind of iterations on the 3D world and what have you, how do we imagine that sort of process? How do we imagine that? How do we go out to people and pitch this, if that's what we want to do next?
I think that we wanted to start it with just one of the things that the 3D team brings to the table is a pretty vast network in the art world, and including celebrities and also like more traditional like modern art and also visionary art world. So they've already, I don't know, they suggested they've got to connect it with Polygon. If we deploy this, they claimed that they said, oh, if we deployed it on Polygon will market it for us because they really want activity there. I said, we are multi-chain. We're open to doing this on other chains.
On that front, Polygon's trending on Twitter at the moment, and it's because Dolce & Gabbana are doing some kind of NFT gig on Polygon.
Maybe we should just do it on Polygon. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, we could do it. They're trying to almost position themselves as this kind of like NFT space. And yeah, unbelievably, there's SoftBank. I'm just looking at this report here. I've done a NFT-based fantasy soccer platform, and they've raised $532 million.
SoftBank? Wow, unicorn boys, huh?
Yeah, so they've totally gone WeWork on NFTs and ate $500 million into some NFT football thing, which is insane.
If that's not a sign of the top, I don't know what is.
No, $500 million, man, absolutely insane. But I believe that's targeting Polygon as well.
Like Saudi oil money that they get. That's what I heard. So SoftBank is just like they just squander the Saudi oil money. Like that's basically what they do.
What's $500 million between friends? So yeah, I think we haven't even seen the beginning of the NFT wave yet. They're really pushing it hard. There's major fashion brands that the reason why they presumably made that amount of money is to buy the rights to the soccer teams and all that sort of stuff. So there's the potential for this kind of, we tried to pick up some of that secondary market stuff.
Yeah.
So to sort of leave the sort of 3D bit behind a little bit, what really excites me about this is actually the auction mechanism itself. So we designed two kinds of auctions, one of which we launched our fungible token on. We had launched FVT on it, and that's like a token launch pad, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a bit. What we've also got is a NFT version, a single item auction, which essentially is designed to replace the auctioneer. So if you go to a sort of real life auction, there's typically a person with a gavel sitting at the front who raises the prices until no one wants to bid anymore. So the price goes up and up, and then they find, right, there's no one in the room who's willing to bid at this price. So they then lower the price a little bit, take it down to a price that's above the previous bid price. So they lower the ask price gradually down to the last bid. And then once they pick up another bid, then they'll start ramping again. And we do this algorithmically with a smart contract. And the way to think about it is it's basically it iterates through the price space, and we call it a binary search auction because it's searching through the prices that people might be willing to bid for it. And so at the moment, most of the NFT auctions take place they're not quite even an English auction. It's just essentially the minter of the NFT waits until they have a price they're willing to sell it for. The other kind of design is a kind of timed auction. So Foundation has this thing where you trigger if someone bids, someone meets the reserve, 24-hour auction start, and there's other similar designs that have timeouts. Now, the issue with them is that all of the bidding activity essentially happens in the last seconds of the auction. So everyone tries to snipe the end. And amusingly, this happened to Justin Sun on that Beeple auction, who was trying to put a bid in, and he got front run right at the last second and was moaning that his bid wasn't counted when it should have been. And our mechanism is not snipeable, because you can wait to the last second and bid, but that just triggers another round of bidding, another bidding cycle. So essentially the auction just keeps going until there's no more bids. You've like exhausted all the bidding activity in the room, so it's actually an important development in auction design, in my view, because I think it's been a hanging problem in auction theory of how you deal with sniping in online auctions. And I think we might have a kind of solution to it, which is really exciting. I'm really looking forward to seeing the first NFT auctions happen in this thing. So the auction design itself is really interesting. Should, in theory, find the highest possible price for an NFT sale. Now, at the moment, if you've bought a CryptoPunk or something, or maybe one of the kind of lesser known NFTs, and you want to find a buyer, you just have to wait until someone wades through the 10 million NFTs around on OpenSea and finds it, and then puts a bid in that you're willing to accept. Or you just like put a ask price and wait for someone to come along and pick it up. But discovering your NFT is difficult, and you're not necessarily going to have a room full of people competing for that NFT. It's just this one passing by person who's found it. So yeah, I think it solves some of these liquidity issues with NFTs. There's people who are going to get stuck in a position on NFTs, and in this design, you could essentially say, okay, there's an auction happening on auction.vote on Friday night. I'm going to get my NFT in that. And that's what I'm interested in. What's our business model around how do we attract those NFTs? Are we going to aim for collections? Or are we going to have like slots that people can essentially take if they want to sell an NFT? I just don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think I saw it as being like you said, the rental model where it's somebody wants to do an event, but it could be individual artists who want to do an event. Maybe they have a series of art pieces that they want, and it's like part of it is getting the sellers and part of it is getting the buyers. So it's a kind of market making game, and I think we should have a kind of broker deal that we use to promote. Be like, look, if you can bring the buyers and or sellers to the table, then you get a piece of the action. And as far as there's also the white label angle. So if somebody likes Sotheby's or I don't know, some auction house or wanted to use it but put their name brand on it, that's something we could license to them. And and then there's also like the possibility to just sell the thing. I mean, like it could be that Sotheby's wants to give us $10 million for it. You're like, all right, we're gonna spend half of it burning FBT.
Yeah. So part of the initial design we've thought around the token economics is that essentially a percentage of the volume that's sold through so like all these auction houses, they collect 3 to 15% of the trading volume is captured as fees. And the way that the FBT holders benefit from this is again through this kind of incinerator type deal where we collect ether. So that in the contract, there's a percentage split. So the owner of the NFT gets, say, 90%, and then 10% is kept as fees in the auction. So yeah, which again there could be some high volumes. There's NFTs that sell for millions. Yeah, it's potentially very exciting type thing. And we do have a plan to have a 2D representation of this as well, where that opens up not everyone's going to want to navigate around a 3D world in order to partake in an auction, but it also opens up the opportunity to have real life auction events in physical galleries where the bidding screen is projected onto the wall and people can just stand around with their champagne or whatever and watch this auction take place live. And at the same time, there's a 3D virtual world event happening on the internet that people can take place in. And just from a sort of economics dimension, that it just potentially turns an auction bidding scenario. So if it's our Crypto Christie's thing, you've typically got people in the room with the paddles, and then you've got people on the phones who are bidding remotely. The people on the phones in our case are anyone on the internet who wants to transact with a smart contract, who might be taking place in a kind of virtual metaverse auction as well, which potentially just massively broadens the potential for buying something. So just with NFTs, you're just looking for one person, right? So it's not necessarily like a fungible token sale where you're trying to get like 100 buyers or 1,000 buyers taking place or all buying the same thing. You're looking for that one mad lad who loves that item a lot and is super rich. You're looking for the whale in the room. So it's like throwing a net out and to catch a whale. And I think this potentially broadens up the scope for that to happen, like massively, which could be very attractive to people who run physical gallery auctions as well.
I think I want to call it the whale in the room now.
Yeah, go whale hunting. There was a while.
Talk about the whale in the room, guys.
I love that. There needs to be a book like about crypto called The Whale.
We were calling them dungeon whales for a while, weren't we? There's like some people floating around in the crypto dungeons with just insane money. You're trying to catch them. So yeah, I think it's super cool. So our strategy is, I think, what will make this pop is finding a really good collection, like a high profile NFT project to come in and say, hey, yeah, let's have an event here. So I think like our first major event is probably potentially a sellable thing. Who wants to be the first to be in this room? And I think so we're looking to, it's a biz dev phase of the project where we want to be finding, I think there's a handful of these NFT things going around. So you've got CryptoPunks and Meebits, I know one of our users is interested in. And yeah, I think it would be really cool if we can get a curated selection of them, one of these major NFT projects to come and sell their best 10 NFTs or whatever. So yeah.
It could be interesting to approach collectors. I've been doing quite a bit of research into this stuff. So I found like a collector, for example, who has one of the biggest collections of deadheads.
Okay.
And they have pretty much all their collection up for sale because they're obviously this is what they do. It's a collector who's doing it just to make money, not to own things. So there are these people who this is what they do. They collect art. So they've already got a curated selection.
Mm-hmm. So that could be really interesting. So a collector might rent our venue.
Yeah.
And say, here's what I've curated. And then they have a kind of cash out event, essentially, where they've been collecting NFTs for a year or something like that. And then arrange a big auction event to liquidate.
How I found him, because this is quite funny, because I was looking at the top holder of the rugs, the rug what the fuck.
Oh, yeah.
So he just aped into it completely. Went and saw his profile on OpenSea, and the guy has done this with a lot of projects.
Yeah, just essentially, there's a lot of, I've seen some cats doing this where they basically, hey, there's a new, it's just like considered alpha, isn't it? There's a new minting event, and then there's just the people who just run at the event. And quite often they have this kind of bonding curve thing. It's one of the things that makes some of this a little bit scammy. They just tell all their mates to buy the cheap ones and then start giving some to influencers or telling influencers about the early events.
This guy bids on his own stuff. He's definitely playing that game.
Yeah, but nevertheless, what they end up in is potentially trapped in one of these positions where they've spent $1 million or more collecting these NFT things, and then they just want to get rid of a huge batch of them in one go.
It's like a gallery in a way. It's like a collector who's doing to make money. Galleries, that's how they earn their money.
Yeah. It's not madly different to the real art world.
No, it's quite similar. Yeah.
So that's an interesting target. Collectors. I don't know how you find these cats.
You can literally just find the people that are holding large amounts of certain things that aren't the devs.
Yes. So you go and have a look at, let's go and have a look at who the large holders are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. That's a good lead.
This guy's holding rugs and deadheads and CryptoPunks. So he's obviously going in for some big ones. Maybe the rug thing made him excited. It is quite a funny experiment.
Yeah. And these things, as seemingly in a bear market we are, NFT projects are still selling out in a day. So I think it might be interesting to try and gather insight from some of these people. I think maybe one of the things to do is not necessarily go and try and like sell it straight away, but do this kind of feedback seeking exercise where we're like, hey, we're developing, this is what we're doing. It's still somewhat live in terms of look and feel. Can we go and approach key stakeholders in the NFT scene and get their feedback to finalize the strategy? Because I'm mindful that I might know utility tokens very well, but I know there's a lot about the NFT game and market that I'm not in that target audience. I don't understand it as much. So I'm quite keen for us to, and it is much more, I've dived into some of these Twitter spaces where people are talking about it, and it is a totally different vibe to the kind of DeFi world. So I do think there's a kind of intelligence gathering phase that I think would be hugely valuable in the next month or two.
Yeah, I've collected quite a bit of research when I was working on what the UX for this is going to be, because having to look through competitors and what their complaints and suggestions are for other platforms is really useful, because you've got these like forums on Foundation or in other ones where or going into their Discord and you can see what kind of features people are looking for. And yeah, so it's a really interesting world. I'm going to continue doing some more research into it. This is anyway, it's going to inform our own app, because we're walking into a quite saturated space. So we've got our unique auction mechanic, but also the UX. We've got our 3D world. We're trying to create USPs here.
Yes,
it's an unlike other areas we're in where we're unique. This is hugely
it's hugely competitive, but also a kind of massively growing market. And I do think the angle we're taking around events and our auction design itself, I think when people see that in action, it's going to be quite an exciting thing to watch. So I think we have a USP in the actual auction mechanic. Will take time for people to understand. Like they'll need to see some auctions to get it. But when people get it, I think people are going to be quite excited by that.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Like I was speaking to this illustrator that we're going to be working with now, and she is quite a big seller now on a few different platforms. She does very well because she does a lot of fan art for computer games. And she would be an interesting benchmark, because we could do an auction with her and she could then compare it to what kind of sales and exposure she's getting on the other platforms.
That would be interesting. So someone who's actively selling on other NFT
She's selling
platforms,
every day. Her stuff is going very well.
Yes, let's do that.
And then actually get some data on is the sale price higher on our auction system?
Finance and business.
Yeah, so that sounds like a
and she's interested. So because we've already engaged with her to do art for us, so it's a nice package as well. I was thinking about this as we were talking about having resident artists for our own NFTs, and we could have it as we do an auction for the resident artist.
Yeah, so it dovetails with the identity.
Yeah, it puts us into a good kind of patron space almost.
On that front, we do have Zach. And like we've had a lot of people engage with that. We can do one of these with Zach.
For him,
Yeah. So I mean, I'm a big fan of path of least resistance. Like, let's go to the people we're engaged with already and stick with people we know to start with.
On that, again, this isn't probably path of least resistance, but the way I kind of think about NFTs is I think digital art is just like the vanguard, right? That's just the tip of the spear, and then it'll become sort of items in gaming and how you can sell those items to other people as well. I'm not saying we want to have a WoW, or when I say World of Warcraft type auction thing, that will be a thing where you'll be able to go and look at different items that you can buy in the game world, and you'll be able to buy them, right, at an auction house. But then looking at it back to the real world, and like how do you connect it back to reality, to atoms, would be, for me, I think things like vintage sneakers. This is a huge market. People spend so much money on this stuff all around the world, and there are so many sites dedicated to just selling that alone. And the idea of having some sort of partnership where we would partner with, say, Sneaker Freaker, right? And we would, with Sneaker Freaker, for each pair of trainers that have, we would create an NFT for that trainer. And the person will be able to buy those trainers, get sent them in the real world, and in the crypto world, get sent the NFT. So then they can authenticate that they are real trainers with the real NFT, and that therefore is then unsellable. And to have a kind of auction in this world of, and sneakers is just an example, but you get what I'm saying, of the real world product, which you can buy here, which people do all the time. People go into websites all the time, buy trainers, they've got no issue with it, especially if it's a collector's item, and get the NFT that goes with that as well.
But what happens when they start trading? Like, I don't want to derail it. It sounds a bit like Materium that Vinay Gupta is doing, because they did this DALI thing that is in a vault somewhere in London. I don't know if you heard of it.
I spoke to Vinay not long ago about this because, he's got a thing that facilitates physical settlement of stuff.
But with sneakers, it would be a bit like weird, because what if I like throw away sneakers or destroy them and NFT lives on? For instance, with DALI, they have a proper legal system. So every time, so it's like a property title. So NFT becomes a property title. Is that the right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's the digital property of the physical item. But yeah, we're not talking about selling any old trainers. We're talking about vintage collective items. So if you destroy the real item, you've only got the NFT, then you've only got the NFT. It's not worth as much as it would have been with the physical item, right?
Yeah. This interesting interaction between the digital and the physical, and if they can get out of sync, like how does that get resolved? And in some cases where the ownership of the property is managed by a law and contract, where it's like a highly managed thing by like courthouses, then you can leverage that to secure that link between the digital and physical. But in other cases, it may be secured only by social convention, and that's not unviable. It's just
It's not, and there's also the kind of Unisocks type model, which is you bought an NFT and you can essentially cash it in for the physical item. So like I've got the NFT for these sneakers, and if I actually want them, I destroy the NFT and it gets sent to me.
And
or you could just do a discount. Actually,
interesting cross-selling I'm sorry, Ksenia. There's some interesting cross-selling opportunities here, because somebody has a weird NFT they want to sell. Cool. Oh, by the way, we can attach a governance system to your NFT set.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, like like we were talking about this morning, where we could essentially airdrop governance onto fungible tokens. We can do it for NFT collections as well. So we could introduce governance to CryptoPunks if we wanted to, and if they wanted to.
That's much more powerful than just JPEG.
Yeah, we've been playing with this idea of aesthetics and utility. Like our markets NFTs give you rights of access to a system. They give you a governance vote. They have the potential to earn yield. And yeah, that's the kind of next era of NFTs in my view. What I can imagine the workflow being is, I think we've got a few different potential adoption vectors for this. We've got like existing NFT projects. So let's say there's CryptoPunks and CryptoPunks auction. Lava Labs might want to do auction events. So Lava Labs are sitting on a load of their own NFTs. They're going to want to exit from that at some point. So I think of the 10,000 punks, they hold like 2,000 of them in reserve, like a pre-mine, and many of them do. So at some point they're going to want to exit from them. So we might want to, one of the targets is NFT projects. One of the other targets we've talked about is collectors who might want to, show off their curated collection, and they all get sold at the end. And then we've got people who, let's say we get a celebrity, and I've spoken to a few people who, hey, I've got celebrities in the bank who want to do NFTs, which of course all the celebrities are going to do NFTs. All the influencers are going to do NFTs, because why wouldn't you? Like, it's free money for JPEGs. So we're going to have a lot of people who they don't know crypto whatsoever, right? They're outside of the space, and they're going to want the whole thing done for them. They just say, here's my JPEG, and then we're going to have to create the NFTs for them and take all that sort of whole process on for them.
So can I just ask a question about that point there? It's something I've been wondering about. If we mint the NFTs for an artist or for somebody, there's the whole like secondary market and consecutive sales of the piece after it gets sold. Now those need to go to the original owner. If we are the ones minting it, will we not be the original owner?
I think you can change the owner.
Yeah, you can set the owner of. It's like the owner of the NFT contract, and it's just a parameter that you set when you deploy the contract.
Okay, because that was something we discussed, that potentially if we do go down this route and we see that a lot of the time we're not getting sent NFTs, but we're actually minting them, we might want a interface for that, an interface. We don't want people having to go off and mint their NFTs on a different platform and then bring them to us.
I agree. Yeah. And it's like the parameters we use to stick in the contract are very simple. It's like you specify a minter, you specify an owner, you specify a name, and then a symbol. That's it.
So this isn't far off. We could potentially put it into the 2D.
I think we could have the kind of minting
Awesome
dynamic in the 2D.
Yeah, I really think that's important, because otherwise I don't want them to go to OpenSea to mint or to like Nifty, you know.
Yeah.
Well, right, and I think we'd probably want to still do it for them because it's like expensive in gas and we have to use the interface. I was like,
doesn't it always cost money to mint it anywhere?
I think at OpenSea they'll do a kind of free minting for you. I don't know if they still do that, but
we should look into then the prices of minting as a benchmark for how we set these up.
Yeah, it's variable on
like when we do it, it would be like you have your entire contract and you can like continue minting them. And I don't know if that's the case with the other ones, but I think they might have you all on one contract.
A lot of artists will come in and just do one at a time.
Yeah, there's some logistics to work out there, but essentially, if they come to us and be like, can you do this for us? The answer is yes.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to make sure that, because this is actually something that came up with this illustrator, like that we can make her the owner of it, even if we're the ones who mint it.
Definitely, yeah.
So I don't know if this is thinking the right thing, but I know with Engine on their JumpNet, their new sort of protocol for NFTs, you can mint and share NFTs for free. And I think you can, so there's the whole ownership piece. You can do the tiered ownership. So we would mint, but then pass on ownership to X.
Platform's that?
Engine?
Like the word engine, or?
Yeah, they've got their JumpNet, and that does a lot of that, and it's all gasless. That's pretty good. Sonny.
It could be that there's no NFT underneath it, you know.
Yeah, I think it's one of the other NFT platforms have added a bit of Ponzi-nomics into their game, where the secondary sales, the fractions of the secondary sale go to previous owners. So if you're like the 10% goes to the originator, the artist, but then the 5% gets split between the previous 10 owners or something. So there's things we can do with that. Now there is some complexity around tracking secondary market sales, isn't there? On passing on the shares of the profits.
Yeah, if it actually results in the transfer on chain, then you have a record of it. But if you put a barrier to transferring it on chain, you create an incentive to push the sales onto secondary markets off chain or onto like layer twos. So it doesn't. I think enforcing certain things like that on chain feel a little bit difficult, like in a practical sense. It's not that it's that hard to code, but I just think people will work around it if you start getting greedy.
Yeah, it's difficult to enforce fully.
Yeah.
So
it's also you don't have any way to track what someone paid for it, because that could just happen in a separate transaction or like a parent transaction. Like the transfer function gets called, you don't know what predicated that.
So I think there's an open question there around secondary market sales, and then I think we can spend a bit of time polishing up the system, getting our 2D interface ready, creating this yet another sort of package to then go and shop around to generate some adoption. So yeah, I think I think we're close to being ready to go for, I think alongside finalizing development, we should be looking to find our first 2-3 auctions. Like I think we could do something with Zach, the artist that you're working with, Naomi, and it would be great to get a kind of very crypto-centric, known NFT project on board as well. It's potentially a great way to pick up some network effect and traction for the project by just doing an event with our project that's already got a lot of interest.
If you'll permit me, in the language of OKRs, the objective here is that, if I understand correctly, is we want to get some traction on this product. We want people using it. We want people excited. We want to have, I dare say, we want to have the most popular NFT system out there. And the key results we're going to use to get there in the short term is we're going to have 3 auctions, one with Zach, one with Naomi's artist, and then the third one with some famous crypto person.
Yeah, I like that. And I think
starting with Zach is good because they built it. So I feel like they'll be the right ones to do the test.
Yeah, it's a little bit lower risk as well. It's a good to have the first few auctions. There's bound to be bugs. There's bound to be wrinkles that need ironing out. And we talked about this auction zero concept, which is much more community focused and a little bit lower key. I'd certainly, since we've got a completely novel auction design we've never seen happen, we've got a completely novel 3D auction system, I think it's a good idea to warm up in magnitude of these events over time before we start shopping it to big celebrities or whatever.
Start with a sympathetic audience.
Yeah. So I like the idea of doing one with Zach first. I'm looking at his NFTs now, and the fund's like really nice stuff. I'm super pleased with it. It's got a bit of like story related to us as well. So
and was somebody listed one of them for $800,000?
But yeah, I think so let's get the ball rolling on that, and let's aim for first mega auction for Q4, where we're going to get a big name to come and get involved. The other thing we haven't talked about much is the kind of token auction. We've been sitting on essentially a launchpad system, and when everyone was doing launchpads, we actually created one of the first launchpads before launchpads were a thing, and then just basically shelved it for nearly a year. So I think it's time to revitalize this. And I think one of the users said not long ago, it's like a real shame that we've had this technology and not utilized it. So I think that's part of our sort of dApp suite launch a DAO sort of thing. We are talking to a couple of projects that are interested in doing this, and I'm quite keen to maybe in Q4 launch a kind of template DAO, which just uses all of our apps that we launch, project that we don't necessarily make any money from. It's like a public good type DAO project. I'm quite keen to do something like Artist DAO, where whoever puts money into the pot gets governance tokens to decide how that pot of money is spent, and that pot of money is spent on funding artists. So I think we've got Balaji was talking about yesterday, he was like brand new kind of methods for venture funding. Launch a token, give it away, give out governance rights to everyone, manage open source software in a DAO. And we basically just got everything that he's talking about, the full stack. So we may find some projects who go, yeah, I'll use all of finance, but dApps, and take on essentially a risk, what is essentially a relatively unknown project. That we would have been very dubious about hanging our hat wholesale on another project's technological stack. And I think that's going to be a bit of a blocker for us. So what I'd like us to do is think about, can we just showcase the full stack by launching a sort of DAO of our own, if you like. Just get the ball rolling. Don't know what people's thoughts are on that idea.
I think having a showcase DAO, I think that's a good way to like look at this thing we built. We're also that showcase DAO. We're a DAO, and we use all these tools.
Yeah, we are the kind of showcase. I think there's this. But we've done it we've built it behind us on the way. And I think there's the potential to just go like, bang, here's all 5 apps in one go, deployed on the same day. It's a slightly different thing. And it's also
just like, if you're saying doing it all in one day, it's a high degree of like automation and like efficiency. So
it might not necessarily all be in one day, but it's one.
That's a milestone. Like,
it is certainly a milestone. So we've got to this point where we're ossifying these apps. They're kind of all getting to the point where they're cooling down. So that can be considered finalized when we can automate it all, and it's like literally just goes pop and it all gets done.
That's a key result. Right.
Yeah, and the problem with us as a DAO is we're just too damn complicated for people to understand. So we could just make this like a super simple, this is a pot of money that can be shared to pay out artists or whatever. It's nice and simple. So I'd like, as a kind of milestone targets, to either do it ourselves or recruit another. I want a full house deployment from vesting to auction to liquidity mining to governance by the end of the year. And yeah, I think that's a good target for the token auction. And I think that,
maybe like 3 of them.
Yeah, I'd be happy with 1 full stack launch of our dApp suite, but if we can do 3, more the merrier. The end game is that we've got this kind of DAO printing mechanism, like people can come along and just pop them up, and we're just going to be firing DAOs into existence on a daily basis. Thousands of DAOs a day, eventually.
1,000 DAOs a day. That's
yeah, that's 3 1,000 a day. Could happen. So, is there anything else on auction people want to talk about? I think we're like, although the token auction, there was a couple of little bits we needed to tidy up on that didn't feel like huge. If all of a sudden, so the character we were talking to yesterday, who's interested in that, he was saying mid-August as a potential. He's talking to some of these other scammy launch pads where he's just like mulched in the other shit coins. I wouldn't be surprised if he said, okay, let's do an idea with you guys. And
I'm actually just responding to him right now. Do you want me to pause that, or you want?
Yeah, go for it, man. Yeah, let's keep him warm. And
I have a question regarding this artist DAO. How do you imagine the process? Because we discussed that before, and we started suggesting artists, and then it died out a bit. I'm wondering what would be the process of suggesting. Can community come up and say, okay, this is an artist collective that we think we should work with? How does the biz dev or goes about it? What is the process?
Yeah, the way I imagine it is that it's very similar to the concept of the original DAO, right? Which was like almost like a decentralized venture capital fund, but in this case, it's non-profit and for funding art. So essentially, artists would come up and say, here's my portfolio. I want to do this project and I want 25 grand to do it. And then the DAO votes on releasing the funds, whether they want to release the funds to that artist or not. And how I imagine it is they get an NFT back so this DAO collects and curates NFTs.
So the key figure for this DAO is actually a bunch of curators. It's a bit like a gallery thing.
It's like a patronage almost, I think.
Yeah, it's patronage type model, right? It's like you literally, I want it to be like 100% non-profit, like an actual fair launch.
So instead of giving money to a museum, pool your money with other art philanthropists. But then it also allows anyone to be an art philanthropist. Any of us can put in 50 and get some tokens back and be part of a group that funds art, which to me sounds very attractive. Like, I think that's a very cool concept.
Yeah.
Not just a vote, like you're actually like if as artists, we generally want to help other artists, but none of us have any money. So it breaks that structure a little bit. So you can help each other instead of just buying each other coffee. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's very much in the kind of public goods, communitarian sort of vibe that aligns with our principles and values a little bit.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's amazing. It's just that like the process would be like everyone in the community or the core team just goes out and finds artists they know who kind of would be interested in that and say, would you like to put a portfolio up front? And then maybe we raise this funds or maybe we don't, but it's a risk, right? So the idea
would be a perpetual open call in something like this. You'd have the way I would see the like structure of building this is you'd build like a concept website, which would be join this artist DAO, we fund art. Like something like that. And then there's an idea.
Call,
so there's a constant open call, like a grant system?
Yeah, I don't want to diverge too much, but with an open call right now, all these hungry artists that didn't make money on NFT, we're just going to end up with, it's fun. Maybe we end up with something interesting, maybe not, depending.
The proposal could potentially do the filtering. So we use governance techniques, the idea they use all of our dApp suite. So they could use influence proposal decision in order to do it without having to like filter through everything. You could have certain people maybe who are more expert in art to analyze. I'm assuming I would delegate, if you were going to put a lot of money into an artist, you might want to delegate like an art surveyor to actually check out this person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we could have a council that we could just give NFTs to.
the council can be good artists because
Yeah,
the
yeah.
artists can be
Yeah.
curators.
Yeah.
In fact, if you got funded, you could get a council.
Hierarchical system within it, because there definitely is in the art world. But yeah,
So-
I think it's a really cool.
I think it's a really nice idea because it's like on values to the space and could be something that's fun for us to develop in the DAO. So again, it could be one of our sort of mini DAO type ideas where people who want to be involved in getting that project on the ground and start brainstorming and coming up with ideas for how it can be done, come up with a strategy. And we do it once the plan and the technology's ready. The technology isn't that far off. So yeah, maybe we can set up a Discord channel for Artist DAO and just let people congregate around that if they're interested in taking part.